Welcome, creative photographers. I'm Hayley from Creative Photo Folk, and today we'll be capturing ice lit by gelled lights for interesting macro abstracts. Now, the setup for this is quite similar to my ice painting tutorial, and in fact, I photographed both these projects on the same day. But in case you haven't seen it, which I will link it in the comments below, I will run through the setup again. The first thing you will need is a slab of ice. So find yourself a large plastic container and fill it with 1 or 2 inches of water. It must be plastic as glass may explode. You don't want the water to freeze too thick so that the light can still shine through and so that it melts more quickly for interesting shapes. This technique may also be worth trying with ice cubes. You can even try freezing items inside your ice, which is a project you'll find inside my trick photography course, Photo Fanatics. So let your water freeze for about 24 hours. When you're nearly ready to shoot, it's time to prepare your setup. To start with, I placed a disposable alfoil tray on a table outdoors to catch the melting water. I made the mistake of assuming the ice might stand up by itself, but this was not the case. So I was running around frantically trying to find something to hold it up until I eventually found this stand that I used to display my prints at markets. And this worked really well, although you will need to shoot around it. For this shoot, I waited until around 5 p.m. as I didn't want a lot of natural lights, knowing that I would be using some gelled lights. So now we'll need to prepare those lights. I used 2 Canon speedlights and a trigger to fire them, which I'll link in the details below. I covered these with a little pack of free gels I got several years back, choosing complementary colors. For the first light, I attached the colored gel using a handmade cardboard gel holder I'd made myself some years back. This speedlight had little feet to hold it up. For the second light and gel, I used a rubber band, which was a little bit harder as the gel wasn't quite long enough. This speedlight didn't have feet, so I found a small, sturdy bucket to put it in. If you don't have lights or a pack of gels, you could use a torch or 2 wrapped in coloured cellophane, although these may be a bit harder to handle by yourself. Next, set up the camera. The settings I got the best results with were 1/200th of a second, f10, ISO 100. I switched my trigger on and made sure it was firing both lights, and I had these set to ETTL, which is basically auto, so I didn't have to muck around with settings. Now you're ready for the ice. Take your ice out of the freezer and run it under a cold tap. This is an optional step and something you can play with, but what it does is make the ice crack, so you'll have more interesting shapes to photograph. But photographing the bubbles captured in the ice is quite nice on its own. The ice should easily release from its container if it's plastic, so then you can pop it on your stand inside your tray. Now you're looking for interesting shapes inside the ice, so take your time to find compositions and shapes to focus on and photograph. Because you're using lights, your shots should be quite sharp. I started out with red and blue gels positioned behind the ice at 45 degrees either side, but I moved these around quite a lot, sometimes in front, sometimes to the side, and I really quite liked most of the results. So make sure to experiment with positions for different variations because you can't really get this wrong. I also swapped the gels around a few times to change up the colors, and another thing I tried was placing a tray behind the ice and lights for a darker background, which removed any distractions. So here are my favorite results, which I think are really interesting, dynamic, and fun. I liked this technique much more than I thought, and I can imagine seeing prints of these hanging somewhere like a bar as a point of interest. If you try this one out, please come share your results on Creative Photo Folks Facebook page or tag me on Insta with the hashtag Creative Photo Folk. Thank you for watching, happy creating, and see you next week with another fun photography project. Bye.